At my husband's birthday dinner, the one I'd bankrolled, he raised a glass to his work wife, calling her his greatest source of support. Then, he presented me with a gift bag. Inside was a t-shirt that read, "Divorced and Thriving." The entire room exploded with laughter. She leaned in, planting a kiss right on his cheek. I just sat there, my face burning as if it were on fire. I had just paid for my own public execution. Then I stood, turned, and walked out. 5 minutes later, my phone registered 97 missed calls. "Before we all dig into this incredible meal that my wife so generously covered," Ethan announced, lifting his champagne flute at the birthday party I had spent 3 painstaking months orchestrating, "I have to thank the woman who truly has my back." My hand froze where it rested on my water glass. $9,000. That was the exact price of this evening's humiliation. "Olivia Brooks," he continued, gesturing toward his coworker, who was clad in a shimmering red dress. "My work wife, and the one person who really, genuinely gets me." The room erupted in applause. He then turned to me, holding out a small gift bag, the smile I once found so endearing now looking as sharp and dangerous as broken glass. And for my actual wife, a little something special. The t-shirt inside read, "Divorced and Thriving." Everyone thought it was hysterical. Everyone but me. But that was tonight. This morning, a mere 12 hours earlier, I was a completely different person. A person who still believed her sacrifices had some kind of meaning. Before we continue, thank you for engaging with stories that expose the true price of staying silent. If you believe everyone deserves financial independence and respect, please subscribe. It costs nothing and helps empower others to find their own voice and reclaim their worth. The alarm had screamed at 5 a.m., just as it did every other day. Ethan required his special smoothie, prepared and ready by 7:15, exactly 10 minutes before he left for work. The protein powder alone was a $70 line item, imported from some obscure corner of the world, because the American version tasted, in his own words, inferior. I measured out the powder with surgical precision, painfully aware that only a few servings were left, and my next paycheck was a long 4 days away. My mobile banking app showed a dismal balance of $53 to get me through. As the blender whirred to life, I inspected his shirts. 5 bespoke button-downs were meticulously arranged in weekday order, each one costing more than the monthly copay for the therapy sessions I'd been forced to cancel 6 months prior. Wednesday's shirt had a minuscule crease near the collar. Ethan would notice it. He had a hawk's eye for imperfections in everyone except himself. The steam iron hissed as I worked to smooth the fabric, a sudden pang of nostalgia hitting me for the artist's easel gathering dust in our storage unit. These hands once held paintbrushes at dawn, capturing landscapes I'd sell at local farmers markets to pay for our groceries. Now, their main job was to iron wrinkles out of $250 shirts for a man who hadn't said thank you in what felt like an entire lifetime. "Don't forget the MCT oil," Ethan had reminded me the night before, as if it were a detail I could ever afford to forget. $30 a bottle for an oil that supposedly boosted his cognitive function. I often found myself wondering what it might do for someone whose morning thoughts weren't completely consumed by financial anxiety. By the time I got to my own job, a medical billing office where I spent 8 hours a day processing insurance claims, my stomach was already tied in knots. The break room smelled strongly of someone's microwaved curry, which only made my hunger pains feel more intense. At noon, I stood in line at the cafe downstairs, running the mental arithmetic. $7 for a wrap. That would leave me with $46 for gas, any unforeseen emergencies, and whatever else life decided to throw my way before Friday. The credit card machine beeped. It wasn't the satisfying chime of an approved transaction, nor the harsh buzz of a decline, but the special, ambiguous tone that meant insufficient funds. The cashier, a young man who couldn't have been more than 20, tried it a second time. The same beep. "Maybe you have another card?" he suggested, his voice low, but not low enough to go unnoticed. Behind me, two women from our finance department exchanged a knowing look, the kind of look that broadcasted they knew exactly why my card wasn't working. "Oh, silly me, I must have grabbed the wrong one," I mumbled, my face burning with a deep, hot shame. I'll just come back later." In the cold solitude of a bathroom stall, I ate the stale crackers I kept in my desk drawer for emergencies, the kind that are usually served with soup. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Ethan. "Client dinner at Gibson's tonight. Don't wait up." Gibson's, a place where appetizers started at $40, where he would likely order a bottle of wine that cost more than our entire weekly food budget, where the bill would be easily settled with his corporate card, while mine was being rejected over a $7 wrap. I texted him back, "We need groceries. Can you transfer some money?" His reply came 20 minutes later. "Can't, in a meeting. We'll sort it out this weekend." This weekend. It was always this weekend. The weekend when he would suddenly have an urgent golf outing or a crucial networking event, or some other convenient excuse to avoid talking about our finances. My finances, to be more accurate, since I was the one paying all the bills while he was supposedly saving for our future. Saturday brought my sister Sarah's wedding dress fitting. She stood on the pedestal, absolutely radiant in silk and organza, while her fiancé, David, surprised her with the exact designer gown she had fallen in love with, but decided was too extravagant. "You deserve it all," he told her, and the sincerity in his voice was so real it was almost tangible. I twisted my bare ring finger, the skin looking pale under the harsh fluorescent lights of the boutique. Sarah, of course, noticed. Sisters always do. "Where are your pearl earrings?" she asked during a quiet moment. "The ones from Grandma?" "Getting them cleaned," I lied. The truth was, the earrings had been sold 3 weeks ago to a downtown pawn shop to cover Ethan's car insurance. He had forgotten to pay the premium, and a lapse in coverage would reflect poorly on him at his firm. Sarah's eyes searched my face. "Clara, are you okay? I mean, really okay?" "Ethan's birthday is tomorrow," I said, deflecting the question. "Big party at the Gilded Sparrow. Wow, that's fancy. How many people are coming?" 25. Her eyebrows shot up. That must be costing a fortune. $9,000 to be exact. Money I didn't have. Money I had just drained from my emergency fund. The very last thread of my financial safety net. But Ethan had been insistent. His 35th birthday needed to be a statement, an event designed to impress the senior partners at his firm, a spectacle to broadcast his success. That night, long after Ethan had fallen asleep, I sat at our kitchen table, my laptop casting a ghostly glow on my face. I was moving money I couldn't afford to spend into an account that would be completely empty by the next evening. The Michelin-starred restaurant needed another $2,000 to cover the premium wine pairings Ethan had added without so much as mentioning it to me. My reflection in the dark window showed a stranger. A woman with haunted eyes and a clenched jaw, a woman who had forgotten the shape of her own dreams. I meticulously created a spreadsheet of dietary restrictions for people I had never even met. Gluten-free for a Bradley, vegan for a Jessica, no shellfish for a Michael. 25 strangers who were about to consume $9,000 of food that I was paying for, while my own lunch that day had consisted of free crackers. My phone showed 11:47 p.m. In 24 hours, I would be at that restaurant smiling, playing the part of the perfect supportive wife. What I didn't know was that in 24 hours and 13 minutes, I would be walking out with a t-shirt that said, "Divorced and Thriving." My phone exploding with calls, my marriage imploding with the same public spectacle that had sustained it. But in that moment, all I could do was stare at the credit card I was about to max out and wonder how many more times I could disappear into someone else's life before I vanished from my own completely. The morning sun had barely reached its midday peak when my phone rang. It was the Gilded Sparrow. The restaurant manager's voice was a polished, professional apology. She was calling to explain that Mr. Hayes had added those premium wine pairings to the evening's menu. Another $2,000. "We'll require payment confirmation before the service begins," she stated politely. I sat on the edge of our bed, still wrapped in my robe, the emerald green dress hanging on the closet door like a $900 ghost. Ethan was in the shower, belting out some pop song from his workout playlist. $2,000 more. On top of the $7,000 I had already bled out of my accounts. My first credit card company put me on hold for 12 minutes, subjecting me to jaunty hold music that felt like a cheerful mockery of my desperation. When a representative finally came on the line, her voice was coded in that practice sympathy they must teach in corporate training. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hayes, but you've already reached your maximum credit limit." The second company offered me a paltry $100 increase. The third, after hearing the crack in my voice when I pleaded, granted me $500. It wasn't enough. I called my bank, the small local credit union that held my car loan, and begged for a cash advance against my next paycheck. They gave me just enough to cover the difference. Ethan emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, his phone already in his hand. "Why aren't you dressed? We have to leave in 40 minutes. The restaurant called about, "Can you just handle it? I have to answer these emails." He didn't wait for a reply, his thumbs already flying across the screen as he walked toward his closet. My hands trembled as I applied foundation over the stress-induced hives that had blossomed across my chest. The expensive concealer, a birthday gift from Ethan's mother who had remarked that I looked tired at last year's holiday party, couldn't completely mask the angry red patches. My fingers fumbled with the mascara wand, leaving a black smear beneath my eye that required 3 cotton swabs to fix. "You're taking forever," Ethan shouted from the bedroom. "People are already on their way to the restaurant." The emerald dress was a struggle to zip up. I had lost weight over the past few months, not through diet or exercise, but from skipping meals to save money. Yet somehow, the dress felt tighter. Stress, probably. Everything felt constricting. The pearl necklace sat in its velvet box on my dresser. My grandmother's pearls, the ones she wore at her own wedding in 1952, the ones my mother wore at hers, the ones that were supposed to be mine, but Ethan and I had eloped at City Hall because a proper wedding was an unnecessary expense. My fingers traced the cool, smooth spheres before I clasped them around my neck. They were the last valuable thing I owned that hadn't been sold, pawned, or sacrificed for his lifestyle. The 20-minute drive to the restaurant was spent in Ethan's BMW, the one I made the monthly payments on while I drove my decade-old sedan. He was on a conference call the entire time, occasionally mouthing "sorry" at me while he discussed quarterly earnings with someone named Richard. The private dining room at the Gilded Sparrow was a vision of soft lighting and fresh-cut orchids. 25 place settings gleamed on pristine linen. I recognized exactly 6 faces: Ethan's brother, James, his cousin, Melissa, 3 people from his gym, and his college roommate, Daniel. The rest were strangers in expensive suits and designer dresses, people who worked with Ethan, people who knew a version of him I apparently no longer did. "Clara," a woman's voice, sharp and saccharine. Olivia Brooks glided toward me in a red dress that moved like liquid currency, probably a designer I couldn't pronounce. "So sweet of you to throw this for Ethan. He talks about you sometimes." Sometimes. The hostess led me to my designated seat at the far end of the long table. Ethan held court in the center, the birthday king, with Olivia conveniently placed at his right hand. They were already engrossed in laughter about some shared joke, her hand resting briefly on his arm, his eyes crinkling in that way they used to for me. The first course arrived, oysters, which I was apparently paying $60 a head for. I watched Ethan work the room. He was brilliant at this, I had to admit, making each person feel seen, cracking the right jokes, recalling specific details about their lives. When had he stopped doing that for me? So Clara, The woman next to me, Patricia or Paula, began. "Ethan says you're in medical billing. That must be steady." She meant boring. She meant it was beneath this room of lawyers and executives and people who had no idea what the beep of a declined credit card sounded like. The wine pairings flowed freely, each pour likely costing more than my weekly lunch budget. After the third course, Ethan raised his glass and my stomach clenched. This was it. The moment he would thank me, acknowledge the effort, the sacrifice, the $9,000 I had set on fire for this evening. "Before we all enjoy this incredible meal that my wife so generously covered," he began, and for a fleeting second, my heart lifted. I must thank the woman who truly has my back. The room fell silent. 25 pairs of eyes turned to him, then followed his gaze directly to Olivia. Olivia Brooks, my work wife, and the one person who genuinely gets me. The applause was instantaneous. Olivia actually stood up and gave a little curtsy. Someone whistled. Ethan was beaming at her as if she'd personally hung the moon. I sat there, my hands cemented to my water glass, trying to process how we had arrived at this moment. Then he reached under his chair and produced a gift bag. Light blue paper, silver tissue, a white ribbon. He turned to me with that smile, the one I had fallen for 6 years ago, but now it looked cruel, calculated. And for my actual wife, a little something special. The bag felt light in my hands, too light for jewelry, too light for anything of value. I pulled back the tissue paper and saw it. Black fabric, white letters, divorced and thriving. The laughter crashed over me in waves. Someone near me whispered, "Oh my God, that's savage." Another voice chimed in, "Ethan, you're a monster." Camera phones began to emerge. The flash from someone's device made me flinch. Then Olivia leaned over and kissed Ethan's cheek. It was slow, deliberate. Her lipstick left a perfect crimson mark on his skin. He didn't wipe it away. I folded the t-shirt with the same precision I used for his laundry that morning. I placed it carefully on the table beside my untouched entree. My voice came out calmer than I felt. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." But I turned left instead of right. The hostess stand was momentarily empty, the staff busy with the dinner service. I waited, my grandmother's pearls feeling like a chokehold, until someone appeared. "The Hayes party," I said. "I need to settle the bill." "Of course, Mrs. Hayes. $9,412. That was the final tally for 3 months of planning, a lifetime of sacrifices, and my entire emergency fund." I handed her my credit card, the one I had just begged to have its limit increased. It went through, just barely. "Could you please hold the receipt for 5 minutes before taking it back to the table?" She nodded, her expression a mix of confusion and professionalism. The cold Chicago wind hit my bare arms like a physical blow. My coat was draped over my chair in that warm room, a room full of people still chuckling at Ethan's gift. I didn't care. The cold felt honest, real, nothing like the performance I had just financed. My phone started ringing before I'd even reached the street corner. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, once, twice. By the time I found my car, 17 times. By the first red light, 43 calls in 5 minutes. I drove toward the only safe harbor I knew. Sarah's porch light flicked on before I could even knock. She must have seen my headlights. One look at my face, my mascara creating dark rivers down my cheeks despite its $40 waterproof promise, and she pulled me inside without a single word. The warmth of her home felt alien after the Chicago chill had numbed everything on the outside while a fire raged within. "Where's your coat?" she asked, but I couldn't form an answer because my phone was screaming. 97 missed calls in the 5 minutes since I'd parked. The number climbed as we both watched. 98, 99, 100. Sarah steered me to her kitchen floor. The cool linoleum was somehow grounding against my legs. She didn't ask any questions yet. She just grabbed a bottle of wine from the fridge and 2 coffee mugs from the cupboard. We weren't in wine glass territory. The phone kept buzzing. 107 calls now. 108. "You have to answer," Sarah said finally. Just once. Let's hear the excuse he's cooked up. My finger hovered over Ethan's name. Call number 111. I pressed the speakerphone icon. Where the hell are you? His voice exploded into the quiet kitchen, sharp with panic, not concern. Everyone's leaving. The staff is confused. You need to come back here right now and fix this mess. In the background, I could hear her, Olivia, murmuring something about damage control and spinning the narrative. They were strategizing my public humiliation while I sat on my sister's floor in a $9,000 mistake. Fix what mess, Ethan? My voice sounded surprisingly steady. Don't play games, Clara. It was a joke. Olivia said. He caught himself. Everyone's uncomfortable. Just come back and we can talk about this later, like adults. Like adults who give their wives divorce-themed t-shirts as party favors? You're being dramatic. You always do this. You make everything a bigger deal than it is. Sarah snatched the phone from my hand. She's done talking to you tonight, Ethan. Call back when you've figured out what an apology sounds like. She ended the call and immediately blocked his number. There, now drink. The wine tasted like pennies and regret. We sat there until 2 a.m, Sarah periodically checking my phone as a flood of texts from unknown numbers poured in. Ethan's brother calling me selfish, his mother accusing me of ruining his special night. Even Olivia had the nerve to message me. Real wives support their husband's sense of humor. David found us the next morning, still on the kitchen floor, an empty wine bottle between us. He took in the scene, my smudged makeup, the emerald dress now hopelessly wrinkled, Sarah's protective glare, and simply said, I'll make coffee. Then we need to talk about your finances. An hour later, my entire financial history was laid out on their dining table like evidence at a crime scene. David had brought his work laptop and a set of color-coded highlighters. He'd requested 3 years of bank statements, credit card records, even the Venmo history I'd long forgotten. This is going to be hard to look at, he warned, uncapping a yellow highlighter. Yellow was for Ethan's car payments, $520 a month for 36 months. Pink was for his clothing budget, Armani, Hugo Boss, Nordstrom. Nearly $20,000 over 3 years. Green marked his networking dinners at restaurants I could never afford. This one, David said, pointing to a blue highlighted section. His gym membership, $250 a month for that exclusive CrossFit box downtown. You've been paying it for 2 years. He said it was a joint membership that I could go whenever I wanted. Did you ever go? He said I wouldn't fit in with the crowd there. David's jaw tightened. He pulled out an orange highlighter for Ethan's family expenses. His mother's birthday dinner at a 5-star hotel, $1,500. Christmas gifts for his second cousins I'd never met, $4,000. His father's golf club initiation fee, $6,000. I thought we were building a future together, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. You were building. He was withdrawing, David said grimly. He turned his laptop screen toward me. While you were covering all of this, look at his personal savings account. $160,000, accumulated over 3 years while I was selling family heirlooms and skipping meals. That's marital property, Sarah said, reading over my shoulder. Every single penny he saved while you paid his way. We need Jessica Monroe, David said, already pulling out his phone. Best divorce attorney in Chicago. She handled my colleague's case when her husband tried to hide assets. Jessica finds everything. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Jessica Monroe's office on the 25th floor of a skyscraper that exuded success. She was not what I had expected. Late 50s with sharp silver hair cut into a perfect bob, wearing jeans and a blazer as if she had nothing to prove. Tell me about the dinner, she said, her expensive pen poised over a leather-bound notebook. I told her everything. The toast to Olivia, the t-shirt, the public shaming staged as entertainment. Her pen never stopped moving. Illinois recognizes financial abuse as a factor in divorce proceedings, Jessica explained calmly. The documentation David compiled shows a clear pattern of economic exploitation. The birthday dinner? That's emotional abuse with witnesses. 25 witnesses. Her assistant brought in coffee served in actual china cups. We'll file on Monday. We'll request exclusive occupancy of your apartment since the lease is in your name. We'll freeze all joint assets and demand full financial disclosure. What about his savings? Marital property. Every dollar he stashed away while you covered his expenses is subject to equitable distribution. She offered a smile as sharp as a shard of glass. Men like Ethan always think they're smarter than the system. They're almost always wrong. I signed the retainer agreement with hands that, for the first time in days, didn't shake. I was spending money on something that would finally protect me, not diminish me. That night in Sarah's guest room, I slept like I'd been tranquilized. 14 hours straight. No dreams, no anxiety, just deep, restorative blackness. When I woke, the afternoon sun was slanting through curtains I didn't recognize, and for a moment, I forgot why I was there. The emerald dress hung on the closet door, magically cleaned and pressed. A note from Sarah was pinned to it. For when you're ready to decide what to do with it, burn it, sell it, or wear it like armor. Your choice now. I spent that evening doing something I had avoided for years. I read our text history with clear eyes. The patterns were glaring. Can't make dinner, work thing came up, don't wait up. Need you to handle the bills this month. Big investment opportunity I can't miss. Your sister's wedding sounds boring. I'll probably skip. Olivia says you should wear something more professional to company events. Olivia. Her name appeared in his texts more often than mine did. Olivia thinks this. Olivia says that. Olivia suggested. My phone, which I had finally unblocked, showed 243 missed calls from Ethan, plus 18 voicemails I hadn't listened to. Sometimes, the most powerful response to someone screaming for your attention is silence. I was learning that now, 3 years too late, but hopefully not too far gone to save myself. The silence I chose as my weapon lasted exactly until Monday morning at 6:47 a.m. That's when Ethan discovered a new tactic, recruiting his army. His mother's voicemail arrived first, her polished suburban accent dripping with disappointment. Clara, I'm simply shocked by your behavior. Ethan called me in tears. Actual tears. To abandon him at his own birthday party over a harmless little joke? This isn't the daughter-in-law I thought I knew. Marriage requires forgiveness, dear. You need to call him. I played it for Jessica over the phone while making toast at Sarah's kitchen counter. She actually laughed. Save it. Save everything. Harassment from his family only strengthens our case. By noon, the messages had multiplied. Ethan's brother, James, the investment banker who had once told me I was lucky Ethan chose someone so ordinary, sent a novel-length text about maturity and emotional overreactions. 3 of his co-workers found me on LinkedIn, of all places, to suggest I didn't understand office culture and professional humor. Each message was screenshotted, filed, and forwarded to Jessica's paralegal, who was compiling what she cheerfully called the harassment folder. Ethan himself cycled through emotions like a malfunctioning appliance. His 7 a.m. voicemail was angry, demanding I return his calls. The 10 a.m. one was bewildered, asking what he could have possibly done that was so terrible. By 2 p.m. hours, he was crying. Actual sniffles about how he couldn't focus at work, how everyone kept asking where I was. You're destroying us over nothing, he sobbed in message number 17. Olivia thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. Olivia, always Olivia. Her message arrived at 2 a.m. Tuesday morning. I was wide awake staring at the ceiling of Sarah's guest room when my phone lit up with an Instagram notification. A message request from Olivia Brooks. It started with feigned concern. Hi, Clara, I wanted to reach out, woman to woman. Then it bared its teeth. I understand you're hurt, but you need to see that Ethan is going places. He needs a partner who can match his ambition. Someone who gets that success requires sacrifice and a thick skin. Your insecurity has been holding him back for months. We've talked about it extensively. We've talked about it. The birthday dinner was meant to be lighthearted, a way to break the tension everyone feels when you're around. You make people uncomfortable with your intensity about money. A real wife would have laughed, shown she was confident enough to take a joke. Instead, you proved exactly what Ethan's been saying. You're not equipped for his world. She signed off with, "I hope you get the help you clearly need." I read it 3 times, each word a tiny, precise cut. Then I forwarded it to Jessica with the subject line, "Evidence of affair?" Jessica called me immediately, despite the hour. This is gold. She's admitting to private conversations about your marriage, to actively undermining you to your husband, to helping orchestrate your public humiliation. Print this. Back it up. This woman just handed us a gift. On Wednesday morning, I knew I needed to move my body or I would explode. The YMCA on the north side cost $40 a month, a stark contrast to Ethan's $250 CrossFit membership. He'd called it embarrassing, a place where people who've given up go to pretend they're exercising. The treadmill faced a wall of mirrors. For the first time in years, I truly looked at myself running, not criticizing, not comparing myself to the impossibly fit women at Ethan's gym, just observing. My body was strong. It had carried me through 3 years of emotional turmoil, financial strain, and constant belittling. My face, stripped of the expensive makeup I'd worn like a shield, looked younger, less strained. "Good form," a voice said next to me. A woman in her 70s with silver hair in a neat bun and arms as defined as a swimmer's. "I'm Diane. Haven't seen you in here before." "First time," I managed between breaths. "Clara, starting over." She just nodded. I recognized the look. Had it myself at 32 when I divorced Harold. Thought my life was over. Turns out it was just beginning. She told me about the 40 years since, trekking in Thailand, exploring Morocco, sailing in Alaska. She'd taken photography courses in Paris, learned to tango in Buenos Aires at 65. Harold said travel was a waste of money. Now I go wherever I want, whenever I want. The best investment I ever made was in my own freedom. She left me with a wink and her card. She was a travel blogger now at 73. For when you're ready to see what's out there. That afternoon, I sat in Sarah's home office surrounded by boxes of documents Jessica had requested. Tax returns, bank statements, insurance policies. Ethan had always managed our filing system, insisting he was more organized. What I found in a folder labeled investments made my blood run cold. An account I had never seen before. Opened 2 years ago at a bank we didn't use. The statements showed automatic weekly deposits from Ethan's paycheck account, the one I believed was for our joint expenses. $95,000, accumulated while I was selling my grandmother's jewelry, skipping lunch, and scouring dollar stores for groceries. The most recent transaction was dated 1 week before his birthday dinner, a $4,000 transfer out. The description read, "OB gift, Olivia Brooks." He had given her $4,000 while I was on the phone begging credit card companies to raise my limits for his party. I called Jessica immediately. "Can you come to the office? Bring everything." An hour later, I sat in her conference room while she and her paralegal pored over the statements with the giddy excitement of archaeologists unearthing a lost city. "This changes everything," Jessica declared. "He has been deliberately hiding assets while watching you spiral into debt. That transfer to Olivia? It's either payment for something or irrefutable proof of an inappropriate financial relationship. Either way, it's financial infidelity on top of everything else." Ethan called while we were documenting the evidence. Jessica grabbed my phone. "Let me." She put it on speaker. "Mr. Hayes, this is Jessica Monroe, Mrs. Hayes' attorney. All future communication must go through legal channels." "Her attorney? Are you serious, Clara? Over a damn joke?" "Mr. Hayes, I strongly advise you to seek counsel. You will be served with papers shortly." "This is insane. This is completely insane. Clara, please." Jessica hung up. "That's the last time you'll hear his voice without a lawyer present. I promise you. That evening, I showed Sarah and David the statements from the hidden account. David let out a low whistle. He played you for a complete fool while building his escape hatch. He built it with my money, essentially, I said, surprised by how steady my own voice sounded. While I was paying all his bills, he was saving every dime. Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. Not anymore. My phone displayed 57 new messages from Ethan's various apologists. His mother, his brother, cousins I'd met only once, friends who had laughed at his birthday joke. They all sang the same tune about overreactions, misunderstandings, and simple jokes gone wrong. But mixed in among them were other messages. Women who had heard about what happened through the city's gossip mill. They shared their own stories of husbands who had humiliated them, partners who had drained them financially. The slow dawning horror of realizing love shouldn't cost you everything. One message stood out from a number I didn't recognize. I was at the dinner. What he did was cruel. You deserve better. We all knew it was wrong, but no one spoke up. I'm so sorry. That anonymous text from a silent witness stayed with me through the night. Someone had seen the cruelty for what it was, even if they had stayed quiet. It made what came next feel less like revenge and more like justice. Jessica called on Thursday morning, her voice filled with barely contained glee. Tomorrow, at 10 a.m., the weekly partner meeting at his firm. Everyone will be there. Are you sure about this? Public humiliation deserves a public response. Besides, Illinois law requires personal service. We're just ensuring it happens at an opportune moment. The process server Jessica hired looked like a sweet grandmother. Gray, curly hair, a cardigan with cat-shaped buttons, the kind of face that gets waved through security without a second glance. Her name was Dorothy, and she'd been doing this for 30 years. "Don't you worry, honey," Dorothy told me over the phone. "I've served papers to bigger fish than your husband. They all react the same way, like they never imagined consequences would actually find them." I couldn't sleep on Thursday night, anticipating what was about to unfold. At 3 a.m., I gave up and opened my laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank page, and then, suddenly, the words started to flow. "The True Price of Partnership," I typed as the title. Then I wrote. I wrote about the $53 in my checking account while I paid for his imported smoothie ingredients. I wrote about my card being declined for a $7 wrap while he enjoyed client dinners on a corporate card. I wrote about selling my grandmother's earrings to pay his car insurance. I wrote about the $9,000 for a birthday party where I was the punchline. I wrote about financial abuse disguised as a partnership, about women who are conditioned to fund their own erasure, about the moment you realize you've been paying someone to make you smaller. At 4:47 a.m., I hit publish on the free blogging platform Sarah had recommended. I thought maybe she and David would read it, send me supportive texts about being brave. By 7 a.m., there were 43 comments, women sharing their own stories, credit cards maxed out for husbands' hobbies, inheritances drained for boyfriends' failed business ventures, savings accounts emptied for partners' dreams while their own were left to wither. By noon, after Dorothy had completed her mission, there were 300 comments. The post had been shared 200 times. My phone was buzzing with notifications I didn't understand. What was a reshare? Why were strangers suddenly following me? But first, Dorothy's report. He was in the middle of a PowerPoint presentation about quarterly projections when I walked in. I announced divorce papers for Ethan Hayes, loud and clear. He went white, then red, then tried to say there must be a mistake. That's when one of his colleagues pointed out I was holding legal documents, not a birthday card. Was she there? Olivia? Oh yes, sitting 3 seats away from him. Went pale as a ghost when I said the word divorce. Security escorted me out very politely, but not before everyone got a good long look. That office will be talking about this for months. On Tuesday evening, 5 days after the birthday dinner, Ethan showed up at Sarah's house. I saw him through the peephole. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and he was holding a bouquet of carnations from the grocery store, the kind that cost $5.99 and come wrapped in crinkly cellophane. Sarah stood behind me. "You don't have to answer." "I know." But I opened the door anyway, keeping the screen door between us. My phone was already recording audio in my pocket. "Clara." His voice cracked on my name. "Please, we need to talk." So talk. He launched into what sounded like a rehearsed monologue. It started with tears, actual wet tears, about how he never meant to hurt me. It shifted to anger about the scene at his office, how I had humiliated him. Then it moved to bargaining, promises of counseling, of change, of doing better. "I'll go to therapy," he pleaded. "Couples counseling, individual therapy, whatever you want." What I wanted was a partner who didn't need a therapist to learn not to humiliate his wife. It was a joke. Olivia said. He caught himself, but the damage was done. "Olivia said what, Ethan?" His face cycled through several expressions before landing on defensive. "She understands me. She gets my humor, my ambition. You've always been so serious about everything, so worried about money, about appearances. I worried about money because I was funding your entire life while you secretly saved every penny for yourself. I was building our future. In a secret bank account, with cash transfers to Olivia?" His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "You went through my private papers?" "Our financial documents for our divorce lawyer." He took a step forward, and I took a step back, the screen a firm barrier. "Clara, please, don't do this. You're destroying everything over one bad night." "No, Ethan, you destroyed everything. I'm just refusing to pay for the cleanup anymore." Sarah appeared at my side. "You need to leave, now, or I'm calling the police." He looked between us, his face a slot machine of manipulation tactics, searching for a jackpot. Finally, he placed the sad-looking carnations on the porch, still in their cellophane wrapper, and walked away. Wednesday morning, Jessica forwarded me an email with the subject line, "Christmas came early." Someone had sent my blog post to Ethan's HR department. Attached was a note. "This blog post describes an employee at your firm. The birthday dinner mentioned involved another employee, Olivia Brooks. Thought you should be aware of potential inappropriate conduct in the workplace." By that afternoon, Ethan's company had launched a full internal investigation. Jessica had a contact there who told her that colleagues were suddenly remembering things. Intimate lunches, closed-door meetings, the way Olivia always seemed to know Ethan's schedule better than his own assistant did. "The best part," Jessica said over the phone, "is that they're investigating the $4,000 transfer. If he used any company resources, his work computer, his company phone, even company time, to transfer money to a subordinate he's potentially involved with, that's grounds for immediate termination." My blog continued to grow. 1,000 shares, 2,000. Women were reaching out with their stories. Lawyers were offering pro bono advice. Financial advisors were explaining the signs of economic abuse. Someone started a hashtag, "True Price of Partnership." On Thursday, I received a message from an unexpected source, Ethan's cousin Melissa, who had been at the birthday dinner. I should have said something that night. We all knew it was wrong. But Ethan has always been the golden boy in our family, and everyone just goes along with whatever he does. I'm so sorry. You deserved better. We all knew it, and we all stayed silent. That's on us. By Friday, exactly 1 week after the dinner that had shattered my world, my life had fractured into a definitive before and after. Before, I was invisible, funding someone else's existence while my own faded away. After, I was awake, aware, and finally fighting for myself. Ethan had called a total of 347 times since that night. I had answered once. The number felt significant. 347 attempts to regain control. 347 failures to understand that some things, once broken, can't be mended with grocery store flowers and hollow promises. Jessica called that evening with an update. His lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate. What do they want? What they want doesn't matter. What matters is what you are entitled to. And honey, that's a hell of a lot more than they want to admit. I sat in Sarah's guest room that night, reading through the comments on my blog, each woman sharing her story of financial manipulation, emotional abuse, public humiliation that had been transformed into private survival. We were building something together, a chorus of voices all saying the same thing. We deserve better. We are worth more than the bills we paid and the dreams we funded for others. The mediation room smelled of expensive leather and quiet desperation. Jessica's massive conference table stretched between two separate universes. Ethan and his lawyer, a man named Richard Steinberg who wore cufflinks that cost more than my monthly rent, sat on one side. Jessica and I sat on the other. 2 weeks had passed since the birthday dinner, and here we were, about to negotiate the price of a 3-year marriage. My client is prepared to be generous, Steinberg began, his voice as smooth as oil, as he slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Mrs. Hayes will keep her personal belongings and her personal debt. Mr. Hayes will retain his savings, which were accumulated through his own hard work and financial discipline. Ethan actually nodded, as if this was a perfectly reasonable proposal. He was wearing his best charcoal suit, the one I had bought him for Christmas with money I didn't have. I earned that money, Ethan said, looking directly at me for the first time since we'd entered the room. Every penny came from my salary. Jessica didn't even flinch. She reached into her leather portfolio and pulled out David's forensic accounting report, bound and tabbed like evidence in a murder trial, which, in a way, it was, the murder of my financial security. $132,000, she said, sliding the thick binder across the table. That's the amount Mrs. Hayes paid in Mr. Hayes' personal expenses over the last 3 years. With interest, it's closer to $140,000. She flipped to a tabbed section. Car payments, insurance, designer clothing, restaurant meals, gym memberships, family gifts, even his mother's birthday dinners, all paid from Mrs. Hayes' income, while Mr. Hayes saved his entire 6-figure salary. Steinberg's face remained a perfect poker mask, but Ethan's crumbled. The smug confidence drained from him like air from a balloon. Additionally, Jessica continued, there is the matter of the $95,000 hidden account and the $4,000 transfer to Ms. Olivia Brooks, dated 1 week before the birthday dinner. We need a recess, Steinberg said quickly. Take all the time you need, Jessica replied sweetly. The numbers won't change. While they huddled in the hallway, I stared out at the view of the Chicago skyline. Jessica's hand touched my shoulder. You okay? He really believes he earned all that money. He really thinks I contributed nothing. Men like Ethan always do. That's why we document everything. When they returned, Ethan wouldn't look at me. Steinberg's offer had changed, but it had only moved from insulting to merely inadequate. Jessica was preparing for another round when my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, texting urgently, "Mom is here." My mother, Helen, had driven 14 hours from Florida without telling a soul. I found her in Sarah's living room, looking smaller and older than I remembered. We hadn't spoken in 6 months, not since I'd canceled a visit because Ethan needed me to attend a company gala. "I read your blog," she said instead of hello. The silence between us was thick with years of things left unsaid. "Sit," she commanded, patting the couch beside her. "I need to tell you something." Over tea that Sarah quietly prepared and left for us, my mother unspooled her own story. How she had worked 2 jobs to put my father through law school. How she had given up an art scholarship to study in Italy because he'd said marriage was more important. How she'd spent 30 years funding his dreams, his law practice, his country club memberships, his affairs she pretended not to see. I told myself it was love, she said, her hands wrapped around the warm mug. That sacrifice meant love. The more I gave up, the more it proved I loved him. "But you always seemed happy," I said, picturing countless family dinners where she smiled and served and never once complained. I got very good at seeming, she said, her voice cracking. When your father died, I was 65 years old and I'd never been to Paris. Never painted a single canvas just for myself. Never bought a dress without wondering if he'd approve. She pulled out her phone and showed me pictures from the last 5 years. Helen in Paris, finally. Helen at a pottery class in Sedona. Helen laughing with friends I'd never met on a beach in Portugal. 5 years of living, she said, after 30 years of just existing. Don't wait for permission, Clara. Don't wait for him to die or leave or change. Give yourself permission now. We held each other then, both of us crying for the years we'd lost to men who saw us only as supporting characters in their own stories. That evening, my phone rang with an unknown number, a woman's voice, warm and professional. Is this Clara Hayes? My name is Jennifer Wu. I'm a literary agent and I've been following your blog. 20,000 shares. That's how far the true price of partnership had traveled. Jennifer wanted to talk about book deals, speaking engagements, turning my story into something bigger. I'm also getting inquiries from media outlets, she said. Podcasts, magazines. Your story is resonating. I agreed to one interview with a small podcast called Divorced and Thriving, run by a family law attorney. The recording took place over Zoom from Sarah's guest room. My voice shook as I introduced myself, but as I began to speak about the dinner, the financial abuse, the moment I realized I had been funding my own erasure, my voice steadied. It grew stronger. Financial abuse is still abuse, I said, surprised at my own clarity. When someone watches you struggle while they hoard their own money, that's abuse. When they let you skip meals so they can eat at fancy restaurants, that's abuse. When they make you feel grateful for the privilege of paying their bills, that's abuse. The interview went live on Thursday morning. By Friday evening, it had 40,000 downloads. Messages flooded my inbox from women who had lived my exact story, who had funded their own diminishment, who had been told they were lucky to be chosen. But the universe wasn't finished. Friday at 4 p.m., Jessica called with news that made me sit down hard on Sarah's kitchen floor. HR concluded their investigation. Olivia Brooks has been transferred to the Delaware office, effective immediately. Ethan has been placed on administrative leave, pending further review. What does that mean? It means security escorted him out of the building with a cardboard box while his colleagues watched. His key card has been deactivated. His assistant is already packing up his corner office. I thought I would feel triumphant. Instead, I just felt empty. Not sad, not happy, just a hollow stillness, like watching the end of a movie you'd been forced to sit through for far too long. There's more, Jessica continued. His lawyer called. They want to settle. The real settlement this time. Half the hidden savings, plus monthly support for 2 years, plus he assumes all marital debt. Why the sudden change? Because Ethan, without his job, without his reputation, without his image, that Ethan knows he can't win. Pride is an expensive luxury when you're unemployed. I sat there on Sarah's kitchen floor, phone in hand, thinking about karma and cost, about prices paid and bills finally coming due, about my mother finally living at 70, about the women reading my blog and finding their own voices, about Olivia packing her bags for Delaware, and about Ethan carrying his box of office supplies to the BMW I had been paying for. 6 months. That's how long it took for the scales to finally balance. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in Jessica's office, adjusting the emerald dress I had worn to Ethan's birthday dinner, the same dress I had worn for $9,000 worth of humiliation. Sarah had suggested I burn it, but I had other plans. Today, it would witness a different kind of transaction. Ready? Jessica asked, handing me a glass of water. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see Ethan already seated with Richard Steinberg. He looked smaller somehow, his expensive suit hanging loosely on a frame that had lost its gym-sculpted confidence. 3 months without his $250 CrossFit membership had taken their toll. Let's get this done, I said. The papers were already laid out. 43 pages detailing the division of our assets, the monthly support payments, the assumption of debt. Jessica had fought for every dollar, and she had won. Ethan's hand trembled as he signed his name over and over. $47,500 from his hidden account to be transferred immediately. $2,000 a month in support for 24 months. All credit card debt now in his name. His BMW, which I had been paying for, was now officially mine to sell. When he signed the final page, his pen slipped, leaving a small ink blot on the polished mahogany. He stared at it as if it were a drop of blood. "That joke at your birthday dinner," I said, my voice as steady as his hands were not. "It cost you everything you saved while I paid for your life. Was the laugh worth it?" He opened his mouth, then closed it, pushed back from the table, and walked out without a word. Steinberg gathered the papers, gave a professional nod, and followed his client out. Jessica popped a bottle of champagne. Real champagne, not the cheap grocery store kind Ethan would buy when he wanted to appear thoughtful. "You did it," she said, her eyes shining. "You're free." Free. The word felt both foreign and familiar. That afternoon, I sat at a different table, my old kitchen table in the apartment Ethan had once called embarrassing. The one with the wobbly leg I'd fixed with a folded piece of cardboard. Jennifer Wu had sent over the publishing contract for my book, The Price of Leaving, A Financial Survivor's Guide. The advance was $90,000, more than Ethan had made in a year at the job he no longer had. I signed it with the same pen I had used for countless credit card receipts, the one that had paid for his birthday dinners, his suits, his gym. Now each stroke of ink was building my future, not financing his comfort. My phone rang as I was addressing the envelope to send back the contract. The caller ID read, "The Gilded Sparrow," the restaurant where my world had fallen apart. "Mrs. Hayes, this is James, the general manager. I heard about what happened during the birthday dinner you hosted with us." My stomach tightened. "How?" "Stories travel in our industry. We pride ourselves on creating meaningful experiences, and to learn that our venue was used for—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Such a cruel situation. It disturbs us greatly." He offered something I never expected, a complimentary dinner for my book launch, the same private room, a chance to rewrite the memory. "That's very kind," I said, and I meant it. "But I only invest in experiences that invest back in me now. That room, that restaurant, it served its purpose. It taught me what I was worth in his eyes, and more importantly, what I'm worth in my own." "I understand completely. Would you allow us to make a donation to a charity of your choice instead?" We agreed on a women's financial literacy program, something good emerging from something awful. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday evening that felt heavier than it should, I heard footsteps on my apartment stairs. Familiar footsteps. The slightly uneven gait Ethan had from an old soccer injury he loved to tell stories about. I looked through the peephole. He stood there in jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, a ghost of the man who had worn designer suits I'd paid for. His eyes were hollow, shadowed. He'd lost more weight. I opened the door but left the chain lock on. "What do you want, Ethan? Can we just talk, please?" "We have nothing to talk about." Olivia left. The words tumbled out like a forced confession. The second my money ran out, she transferred back from Delaware, said I wasn't who she thought I was, said I didn't have the ambition she was attracted to. I said nothing. His pain was not my burden to carry anymore. "Are you happy?" he asked suddenly, his voice raw. "Are you happy that you destroyed my life, my career, everything I built?" "Everything you built," I repeated, the irony thick on my tongue. "With whose money, Ethan? Whose sacrifices? Who skipped meals and sold jewelry and maxed out credit cards? I made mistakes. You made choices, and now you're experiencing the consequences. That's not me destroying your life. That's your life finally catching up with you." He leaned against the door frame as if he might collapse. "I loved you, you know, in my own way. Your way involved publicly humiliating me while I paid for the privilege. That's not love, Ethan. That's exploitation with anniversary dinners. So that's it? 3 years, and this is how it ends? This is how it ended 6 months ago. You're just now arriving at the conclusion I already reached. I started to close the door. Goodbye, Ethan. Clara, wait. I closed the door on his words, on his presence, on the entire suffocating history of us. Through the peephole, I watched him stand there for another minute before finally turning and walking away, his shoulders slumped inward like parentheses around an empty space. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah texting, "Diane from your gym called. She wants to take you to lunch tomorrow to celebrate the book deal." Something about travel stories and new beginnings. I texted back a definitive yes, then made myself a cup of tea in my small kitchen, with its cheap table and its wobbly leg. The apartment was quiet except for the gentle hum of the radiator. No one asking where their smoothie was. No one complaining about the furniture. No one making me smaller so they could feel bigger. The emerald dress hung in my closet, no longer a costume of pretense, but a suit of armor I had survived in. The divorce papers sat in my filing cabinet, 43 pages that had transferred more than just money. They had transferred power. The book contract waited on my desk, ready to be mailed in the morning. I thought about revenge, about whether this was it. Ethan had lost his job, his reputation, his girlfriend, his savings. But I hadn't orchestrated any of it. I had simply stopped paying for the show, and without my funding, the performance had collapsed. The real revenge wasn't in what he had lost, it was in what I had gained. My voice through a blog that had helped thousands of women see their own exploitation. My story, about to become a book that would help thousands more. My freedom, bought back with the same determination that had once paid his bills. Tomorrow, Jennifer would announce the book deal. Next month, I'd be speaking at an event for the financial literacy program. Next year, who knew? Maybe I'd finally take that art class my mother never got to. Maybe I'd see Paris before I was 70. The tea was perfect. Not too hot, not too sweet, exactly the way I liked it. No one else's preferences to consider. No one else's tastes to accommodate. The morning of my first book tour stop, I stood in the bathroom of my apartment, brushing teeth that no longer ached from being ground together in my sleep. 8 months had passed since Ethan had walked away from my chained door. 8 months of rebuilding that had started with tea, for one, and led to this, a sold-out event at a local bookstore with 200 women who had pre-ordered The Price of Leaving. The bookstore's event space was overflowing. Women of all ages filled the folding chairs, some clutching their own legal papers, others holding hands with friends who had dragged them there, a few with teenage daughters they wanted to hear this message before they needed it. I opened to Chapter 3, the birthday dinner chapter, my hands steady on the podium. He handed me a t-shirt that said, "Divorced and Thriving," while 25 people laughed, I read, my voice carrying to the back row. I had paid $9,000 to become the punchline of his joke. No one laughed this time. Several women were wiping their eyes. After the reading, the signing line snaked around the store. Each woman had a story. A Rebecca showed me bank statements where she'd paid her boyfriend's student loans while he complained about her cooking. A Diane brought screenshots of Venmo requests from an ex who had itemized their dates but never once offered to pay. A Margaret, 73, simply pressed my hand and said, 40 years too late for me, but not for my granddaughter. We weren't just sharing stories anymore. We were building a network, a collective understanding that financial abuse wasn't just about money. It was about power, about diminishment, about the slow erosion of self-worth, one transaction at a time. 2 weeks later was Sarah's wedding. She had insisted on a small ceremony, just family and close friends, nothing like the production Ethan would have demanded. I stood beside her as her maid of honor, wearing a sapphire blue dress I had bought with my own money. Not on sale, not on credit. I had just walked into a store and paid full price because I wanted it. David waited at the altar, tears already streaming down his face before Sarah even appeared. This was what Ethan had never understood. Real strength meant being vulnerable with your partner, not performing invulnerability at their expense. When it came time for my speech, I didn't tell jokes or embarrassing anecdotes. I talked about partnership. Sarah and David show us what real support looks like, I said, catching my sister's eye as she held David's hand. It's not one person being the ladder while the other one climbs, but two people lifting each other higher. Not one person funding dreams while their own die, but two people investing in a shared future. I looked at David. Thank you for seeing my sister as an equal, not an accessory, for understanding that her success doesn't diminish yours, for never, ever making her smaller so you could feel bigger. Sarah was crying. But these were different tears than the ones she had shed on her kitchen floor 8 months ago. These were tears of joy, of recognition, of seeing love that multiplied instead of divided. To partnerships that make us more ourselves. I raised my glass, not less. My apartment had transformed over the months. The wobbly kitchen table now held a vase of fresh flowers I bought for myself every Friday. The walls were covered with my own artwork, watercolors I had finally started painting again at 5 a.m., that sacred time that now belonged only to me. Above my desk hung the birthday gift that had changed everything, the Divorced and Thriving t-shirt, professionally framed behind museum glass. A small brass plaque beneath it read, "The gift that gave me back my life." During video interviews for the book tour, reporters always asked about it. Why keep it? Why display something so cruel? Because it's not cruel anymore, I would explain. It's evidence of alchemy. He meant it as humiliation. I transformed it into liberation. Every time I look at it, I remember that the single worst moment of my marriage became the very first moment of my freedom. One interviewer, a woman named Patricia with knowing eyes, said, "You've reclaimed the narrative." "I've reclaimed more than that," I replied. "I've reclaimed my financial future, my self-worth, and my right to take up space in the world. The shirt just reminds me that sometimes the greatest gifts come in the ugliest wrapping." The 1-year anniversary arrived on a Tuesday. I woke up to hundreds of messages, not from Ethan this time, but from women across the country who had left their own financial abusers after reading my story. "Your blog gave me the courage to check our bank statements. I finally understood why I felt poor despite working 2 jobs. My daughter read your book and recognized her own relationship in it. Thank you for giving a name to what I couldn't." I sat at my kitchen table, the same wobbly one, with my laptop and a cup of coffee that cost exactly what I wanted to pay for it. My bank account showed a balance I had never imagined possible. Not wealth, but security. Not excess, but enough. Enough to say no. Enough to say yes. Enough to choose. Jennifer had called the night before about a second book. The publisher wanted more. They wanted to explore the recovery, the rebuilding, the reclaiming. The cost of staying would explore why we remain in financially abusive situations, why we fund our own diminishment, why we mistake sacrifice for love. My phone buzzed. It was Diane from the gym, now a close friend, texting about our planned trip to Montreal next month. My mother sent photos from her art class in Sedona, finally painting at 71. Sarah shared an ultrasound image. I was going to be an aunt in 6 months. Life was happening. Real, messy, beautiful life. Not the hollow performance I had funded for 3 years. That evening, I pulled out my journal and wrote, "1 year ago, I paid $9,000 for a dinner that ended my marriage. Today, I understand it wasn't a loss. It was an investment, the most expensive and valuable lesson of my life. Some bills are worth paying when they purchase your freedom." I looked at the framed shirt one more time. He had meant it as a prediction of my failure. Instead, it had become a declaration of my independence. The bill for my humiliation had been $9,000. The return on that investment was priceless. My phone showed another message. This one was from a woman in Oregon whose husband had just handed her a joke gift at their anniversary dinner. She was sitting in her car, crying, wondering what to do next. I wrote back, "Drive to a safe place. Tomorrow you start documenting everything. But tonight, you just need to know this: it isn't your fault and you are not alone. The sisterhood of the financially free had just grown by one more. The bill for my education had been paid in full, and now I was helping others recognize the price tags attached to their own lives. Some bills, I'd learned, are meant to be torn up. Others are meant to be paid once and never again. $9,000, 97 missed calls, 1 t-shirt, 0 regrets. The check had finally, fully, completely cleared. This story of financial revenge had you cheering for Clara, didn't it? Hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when she calmly walked out of that restaurant after secretly paying the $9,000 bill, leaving Ethan to panic. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below, and don't miss more empowering stories like this one. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. End of story.